Now, when I click update, a couple of things are going to happen. Okay, first, it's actually communicating and we get an automation error because this is my fault. I forgot to select the particular case. I always do this in the demonstration. All right, so hello everyone. Thank you for joining the next episode of Do More with Qlik. Today we're going to cover write-back solutions with Qlik Cloud, and I have special guests once again, Alberto Vaghe from Presales Italy, Qlik, joining us. Say hello, Alberto.
Hi again, everyone.
Awesome. And Alberto's joining me because he has some other write-back solutions, use cases, and scenarios that he'd like to share with you all. So I'm just going to kick it off with some housekeeping type slides, the topics that we're going to cover, the topic that we'll cover next time, where you can get more information. And then I'm going to go into a brief demo, kind of like a simplified example of how to build a write-back solution. And then I'm going to turn it over to Alberto where he can go in a little bit deeper. Okay, so let me just bring up a couple of pieces here. Okay, so write-back solutions with Qlik Cloud. Recently, we have added, when we talk about write-back solutions, it's not a feature, right? It's a capability. It's a solution that you can build with the products. And when I say products, it's kind of like a combination of Qlik Sense and Qlik Application Automation. And it's fairly simple to build. And it's the art of the possible, and you're limited to your creativity and imagination. There are some scenarios and some caveats that you should be aware of that are written in a blog by Emil Kafkalovsky, who's our product manager for App Automation. I have that link in there that you could follow as well. So there are certain times you can use this, and there are certain times you might not want to use it. I don't know exactly what those scenarios are. They're listed in there. I'm here to really show you what is possible, and then we could explore that way. Again, a lot of these sessions are here to really intrigue you, inspire you, to show you what else is available, and then have you take off from that point. So with write-back solutions, okay, this is a quick example that I developed based off of information I worked with Emil in the past. And I have a development HubSpot or CRM. It also could be Salesforce. Alberto's going to show you a Salesforce example. But basically, my scenario is going to be, I have some information within a support case that's stored in HubSpot, and I just want to add a comment or update an existing case, okay? Alberto will show you things where creation is possible and many other types of solutions you can build, okay? And this is possible because Qlik Application Automation has the steps to provide you with the updates in a no-code approach, okay? And there's a couple of new things in Qlik Sense, such as include selections. You see this little selection box here. Run mode triggered allows everyone who doesn't own the application automation to be able to execute it, right? So you open this up to a variety of different users and use cases where the button object can now execute an application and pass those parameters over. And then what you do with those parameters is up to how you formulate, how you design the workflow for Qlik Application Automation. That's pretty much the crux of this. Okay, so we're going to cover that today. If you missed any of our previous Do More sessions, there is an archive. There are links to that available in the follow-up emails. I'm also making these available in a new playlist called the Do More with Qlik webinar archive. These will also be available on YouTube. The reason I'm doing this is I'm kind of cutting these down. I'm doing some editing and getting to the key points and cutting out a lot of the beginning stuff, where the original archive would just, kind of take the whole entire presentation. Okay, so make sure you check these out for previous Do More with Qliks. On the next Do More Qlik, that's August 2nd at 10 a.m. Registration link is in the follow-up emails as well as in the chat. I'm going to be covering OpenAI connectors. This is going to be from two parts: the analytics connector in Qlik Sense, basically allowing you to access the information for generative AI in real time into and embedding that into your app. And then the other part is adding that as part of a application automation backend process. Okay, and we'll cover those on August 2nd. Okay, so what you should know about write-back solutions. Okay, in this example here, it does require Qlik Application Automation. It provides a no-code approach to building these solutions, right? I'm not typing any code with this. All I'm doing is dragging and dropping and filling in parameters. But you should have knowledge of the system that you are writing to or working on, right? So if you have to have a paid relationship with another vendor, and you have access to their APIs, you need to set up your connectivity, your tokens, your secret, your access APIs. All of that stuff is up to you to get that connectivity. The other thing you should know about is that if you want to create custom properties, like for example, HubSpot calls them properties, I believe Salesforce or ServiceNow, for example, calls them objects, you can do that. So you're not just limited to updating or writing or creating fields that are built into that particular platform. You can actually create your own. And I did that in this example that I'm going to show you today. Helpful tutorial also available in the links in the chat. This is a tutorial that Emil had written. It basically goes through step-by-step process, and it uses HubSpot. And anybody, if you want to play around with this stuff, or you have Salesforce Access and Sandbox, or even writing to a relational database, you can do this. But HubSpot allows you to create a development account. So does Salesforce, as you know, and you can very easily utilize these content blocks that I'm going to show you to perform these updates. So I actually created a scenario where I have a ClickSense app. It's fictitious where it has sales information, but I have access to service tickets. I click on the service tickets. It brings me into service tickets that are being written to Snowflake, being replicated from Talend or Qlik Cloud Data Integration into Azure, for example. And then I go in there and perform direct updates directly into HubSpot, and you're going to see that. I see there's a hand raised. I will address that momentarily before I start the demonstration. Okay, so for the demo scenario here, I'm just going to just show you some quick, I love how it does that. Swap the presenter. Okay, I'm going to do a very simple one that I built that allows me to change some properties within HubSpot and update it. And then Alberto's going to go into examples of Snowflake write-back, marketing campaigns in Salesforce, creating a new case, for example, and a case overview. So, you know, depending on, and Alberto, I won't steal your thunder with this. You'll talk about the back-end solutions that you're using and, you know, going to show those examples. Okay. All right. So before I jump into the demo, I'm going to check where we are. Close this and refresh my connection and go back to my edit. Okay, and let me see how this interface works here with Zoom, because I saw a hand raised. Or maybe that was just an accident.
I don't see it anymore. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right, good. All right, so we're just going to transition now into the demonstration. So I always like to do my demonstrations where, you know, it's could be a realistic scenario for an organization. Okay, sales dashboard, monitoring sales, monitoring activity, fulfillment, number of units sold, case support cases, etc., all that type of stuff. Well, here it shows I have 5 issue count. So I'm just going to immediately jump into the issues. And now my issue count is being displayed. And the issues are actually right now, I actually have a nice little setup here. I have information being replicated from HubSpot into Azure, and then ClickSense displaying that information in front of me here. So immediately I see a case here, order numbers related. I could click the HubSpot case and you can see sign is too small. Order number, Mike Tarallo, there's some comments, priority is high, the status is waiting on us. Okay, so let's say at this point, we contacted the customer. So we're going to say now we're waiting on the contact. This is really not a high case. All customers want to open up their cases with high because they want attention to. We're going to change that to low. And then we're just going to add a comment saying change case to low. Called customer, reordered, sign, canceled, existing order. Okay, so basically just a simple comment being added, and now I'm going to click update. Now, when I click update, a couple of things are going to happen. Okay, first, it's actually communicating, and we get an automation error because this is my fault. I forgot to select the particular case. I always do this in the demonstration. And there's ways to fix that. This is just, like I said, a Hello World application of it. So here, when I select this particular case number, now I'm going to perform the update. And when we perform the update, it's actually, you can see your comment has been recorded. You can see Slack I'm using for my notification. It alerted me, your case has new information. Okay, that's part of the automation process. And if I go into HubSpot and I refresh, you can see now that we directly updated HubSpot. The status is now waiting on contact. The priority is low, and you can see there's a new comment in here. Change case to low, called customer. Okay, so immediately from ClickSense with the application automation solution and the write-back solution I built here, we've now updated the third-party platform. Okay, and you can see the value in this. The other value is time to value, where you're developing something like this without any code and then utilizing the capabilities with an application automation, which I'm going to show you. So, of course, like a cooking show, I've always built one that's kind of like half designed. So we're going to go into issues reported. So from this standpoint here, this is just a ClickSense app. Okay. Now, one of the things I also want to show you within HubSpot is you can see in the HubSpot interface, there's a thing called properties. Now I'm in the ticket properties, and you can see there's a new one here called comments. That didn't exist. That's something I had to add to HubSpot. So you can add your own custom fields to whatever it is you're going to be using. This is tickets, there's sales, there's marketing, you know, they all have different data structures. Okay, so you're not limited to whatever the application automation block allows you to update. I'm going to show you that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to the application automation. So this is the original one that just worked. Okay, you can see it's a couple of blocks. We have a start block, we have inputs, apply bookmark, and then I'm getting expressions for the different variables that have been set up in the ClickSense app. And then we have update ticket, which is part of the HubSpot blocks. You can see create ticket, delete association, create product. Right now, I'm just going to go into the bottom, and you can see update ticket is one of them. And then I use update run title. That just sends a message back to ClickSense, and then send a message to Slack. That's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back to my automations, and I'm going to go to the half-built one that I have here called Do More Update Cases. I must have overwrote the one I was working on. So what I'm going to do here is delete this, and that. Okay, that's how it should have stayed. So to build this type of solution, going back in ClickSense, okay, again, you design this the way you want to design it. I'm just using input variables and input boxes. So here I have status waiting on contact. If I go to appearance, you can see the variables called vStatus, show it as a dropdown. And then you can see the fixed or dynamic values, it's fixed. And we have waiting on contact value 2. Label is called waiting on contact. So in other words, when I mentioned earlier, you need to understand how the other system works. The value of 2 for waiting on contact is what HubSpot recognizes. Waiting on us is value 3, closed is value 4, new is value 1. Okay, it's a simple value key pair type setup. If I click on priority, it's low, medium, and high. Very simple. And you can see that's called V priority. And this is just a variable that's been set up in the variables interface. So you should have a little familiarity with setting up variables in Click. So here's V status, V priority, V comment. I must let you know, do not set default definition values for these because I don't know if it's a bug or by design, but if you set a default definition value, it seems to overwrite not pass the correct value. Okay, and I've talked to a couple of people about this. So a good tip or trick for this is when you set up these, do not set a default definition value, just leave it blank. So V comment, V priority, V status, and V reply. We're going to use V reply, which is the comment one. Okay, and these are just simple variables, right? If I edit this variable, it's just nothing more than a variable called V comment. That's it. And that's associated to the dropdown. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go into my custom objects, my dashboard bundle. I'm going to grab variable input. I'm going to put it right here. Just going to style it by just taking off that comment. The variable I want to use is V reply. and show as input box. Okay. Now, the button I want to grab is from my charts, and I'm going to grab a button, and I'm going to style the button to shut off the title. The label for the button is going to be called update. And the action and navigation I'm going to add is going to be execute automation. And the automation is going to be do more with click, do more update cases. That's the automation that I showed you. Where was it? Right. I hate having multiple tabs off. I apologize. Right here, do more update cases. And I'm going to include selections, run mode triggered, show notifications. Okay, and that's how we set up the button to execute that notification. Now, the next step is to grab the app related information that is part of this ClickSense app. So app automation knows about it. And that's what this copy input block button is. So I click copy input block. I go to my automation, I right click and paste the blocks. And I connect that to my start block. And now this has all the information that is needed in regards to passing what it needs to this app automation. Now, the next step is just to use get expression value, which is part of Qlik Cloud Services. So if I type in get, and you can see there's get expression value. All I'm doing now is getting the input of from the app, the variable. Okay, so when I connect this, there's my inputs. I say inputs app, right? So here is your inputs and there's your app. And you can see we even give you a preview of the history. That's the app ID basically that we're using. Now, I don't need both of it because it's already there. And then what is the expression? I want the ticket ID. Next expression, the reply, which is the comment. Next expression, the status. Next expression, the priority. So whatever pieces of information that you want to update, you're basically associating it with a variable and an input box, and then getting those expressions using these get expression blocks. And then finally, I just do update ticket. Now notice update ticket, you have a connection. I'm already connected to HubSpot. You have settings, you have inputs. Okay, so here for ticket ID, I say get expression value and get expression. And there's the ticket ID that came across. Okay. For subject, I'm leaving it whatever the subject is. I don't want to update the subject. Priority, get expression value 4. Pipeline is the support pipeline, which is part of the HubSpot objects. Stage, get expression value 3. The owner is myself, obviously, from the setup. And then notice there's a section called extra properties. This is the custom properties that you want to add or update. So I added one called comments, and you can see it uses get expression value 2, which is the reply. So all you're doing is associating, and you can do a bulk update. You can do a raw API request. There's a number of things that you can do. This is just a simple block for HubSpot that updates the ticket. Now, this could have been Salesforce. This could be a relational database, writing custom SQL. I mean, pretty much whatever is supported in application automation. And then I have a little send message block here for Slack. And that's it. So I save that. Where's my demo? Can we go to the demo one? And then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the ticket, and I'm going to change the ticket just to hi. And we're going to change this to waiting on us. And I'm going to delete the comment here and click save. Okay, because we're going to just re-update the same case with the new app that we just created. So at this point, I select my ticket. I'm going to change it to closed, change it to medium, and I'm just going to put in hello world 1, 2, 3, 4. And click update. Your comment has been recorded. Refresh my HubSpot. And now you can see the case is closed. Priority was medium and hello world 1, 2, 3, 4. So right in front of your eyes, obviously little pre-built so we could save some time, but just built that solution directly from the ClickSense app into HubSpot, the ability to update HubSpot. Now, at this point, I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a look at if there's any Q&A or any questions, and I'll address those. And then Alberto is going to show you even more polished solutions with other platforms in the back end. So bear with me while I just make sure I addressed everything I wanted to address with you. I believe so. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, and Alberto, prepare your side. What I'm going to do is here is just see if there's any. Oh, okay, this was the question about OpenAI. While you're getting ready, Shershan, I'll just respond to that question. Yes, anything with OpenAI is a commercial relationship. You have to set up with them the tokens or the whatever they call it that you have to use to generate those requests. Understand, the more verbose you want the request to be, the more tokens it's going to cost. And I'm going to cover that on the other session. Okay, go ahead, Alberto. You can take over from here.
Yeah. Okay. So as Mike said, I'm going to show you 3 examples of, let's say, write back from Qlik to other platforms. So the use case number 1 is writing back to a database. So it's not writing back to a platform like Salesforce or HubSpot, but to a database. So the idea here is that you have a database where you have your data, and this data is in a data model of a Qlik application. From the application, you can write back to like the database itself, so that the data is then reloaded in the analytic application, and you see the change you apply. So the use case is pretty simple. I'm gonna show you the demo now, and then I'm gonna give you a couple of caveats on this use case. So the way I decided to structure the demo is trying to mimic what a real world write back solution would be, because in the real world you would never ever allow an analytic system to directly override your data. So if an order is coming from the ERP, I don't know, like in a shipped status, you will never allow an analytic application to overwrite the status of the order in the ERP, but you would rather write into an additional table that is only like receiving the update, and then the analytic application is doing the merge. So this is exactly what is happening in this application. I have the original data table that is containing the sales orders. Then I have a specific table only for the changes. And then I have a final table where you have the merged data. So in the real world, most likely the final user would see only the merged data table, not the original and not the changes. But for the benefit of the demo, I exploded, let's say, the application in the three parts. So the way the demo works is pretty easy. You select a sales order. You want to override, for example, the order status, and you want to say, okay, the order has been shipped. I got a confirmation that maybe, what could be in the real world is that ClickSense is getting data from the ERP and maybe from the shipper system. And in ClickSense, you can see that the order has been correctly shipped. So you want to flag it as resolved, for example. And you can, for example, override the customer. I'm not gonna change the customer, but you could change the customer. And what you're gonna do exactly the same way that Mike did. There is an automation behind here that is doing some checks. I can very quickly show you the automation. As you can see, the automation is pretty simple. Is catching basically some values is doing some check, like is doing if a new status has been selected, if a new customer has been selected, and then is firing a query on Snowflake, and then is sending an email and firing a reload. So the automation finished. So what happened is that basically you get a change, some rows in the change table, because the rows are the number of rows of that order. So the order had 4 lines. So we had to apply the change on all 4 lines. This is due to the way the dataset is built. If the status was only on the header of the order, I could only update the header of the order. I didn't need to update everything. So here I get the new rows, and in the table at the bottom, I can see that basically the order is now resolved. Same way goes for the comment. So I can click an order, I can write a comment, and I can fire the button. So basically what the button is doing is calling an automation. The automation is catching the variables and is applying the comment on a separate table on Snowflake, and then is reloading the application. And here with the container, as you can see, I can correctly input the order, I get the date, and I also can catch the author. Because as Mike showed in his slide, the button that has been recently updated in Qlik Cloud is able to catch several variables, and one of these variables is the user that is firing the automation. So I can correctly catch the user that did the update. So as you can see, the demo is pretty easy, it's pretty simple. There are a couple of caveats. So the first one is that you can update one or more records at a time, but you cannot apply bulk updates with a sort of logic. So there are technology partners of Qlik that are doing like full write back solution that have specific extension and specific back end in order to manage the write back. And for example, in that extension, you can like select an order and apply a bulk update to several records, even in a sort of staging mode. So you see the change in the table, but you have to commit it later. Okay, so this kind of approach is not possible with out of the box capabilities. So you select an order, you can select multiple orders, that could be possible, and you have to apply something. For example, you could apply a change in the quantity. So you could say, okay, multiply the quantity by, I don't know, like 0.5. So 50% less or 50% more. But you cannot like do the change here directly and then commit it. And the second caveat is the security part. So a full write back solution usually has a backend, and the backend is the one that is taking care of the security part. In this case, there is no real security behind this solution. You could build a sort of security, like hiding the button for specific users or showing the button only to specific users, but then you would have to move some of the security part on the database itself. Okay, so that are a couple of caveats. But the real advantage of this kind of approach is that you don't have any extension, you don't have any other backend to maintain, but everything is done in a very, very simple way. There is a third caveat. The caveat here is that as we are using application automation, the database on which you are writing must be reachable from application automation. So that link must be directly possible. So just keep it in mind.
Let me embellish on that one, Alberto.
Yeah,
real quick. So we did have a question from an attendee who just logged off. So
okay.
There is something called the Data Access Gateway, which is a way of securing your relational databases and other sources behind a firewall, but allowing Qlik Cloud to access them. Data Access Gateway is not a supported accessible interface from application automation to access those type of sources. So if that's something that you wanted to use, or something you're using like a cloud database, like an Azure or outside, and you have tokens to access that type of stuff, you can do that, but you cannot use a data access gateway as a means to write back into it or to relational. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Sure, it's really important. Yeah. So the second case I'm gonna show you comes from a customer, from what a customer is actually doing today with ClickSense Client Manage. So basically, they are heavy ClickSense Client Manage customer, and the marketing function in the company is using ClickSense in order to define the perimeter and the target of a marketing campaign. So what basically happens here is that you get the you get the idea. So ClickSense is catching data from several sources, is mixing the data in a single data model, and the marketing is able to apply several filters in order to narrow down the list of contacts or leads to be added to a Salesforce campaign. So what happens today is that in the client managed world, they had to develop a custom third-party solution that is actually a sort of mashup, I would call it, that basically is taking data from the selection of the user, is passing this data to a temporary database, where then Salesforce is catching this data once per hour and is writing into the campaign. So as we have application automation with native Salesforce connectors, what I came up with is, okay, you can get rid of the middle, let's say, mashup, and you can directly write into Salesforce. So the idea here is that you have, in my case, it's really simple, but of course, this can be as complex as you want. There is no limit in terms of data model complexity. So in my case, what basically I have here is the list of campaigns. In gray, I highlighted the completed campaigns. And I have, for example, this International Electrical Engineer Association trade show. And I want to find the people that I want to target in that campaign. So here I have contacts and leads. For example, I can narrow down by industry. So being an electrical engineer association, I maybe want to target only people that are coming from the electronic industry. And in terms of leads, I want to only include leads that are coming from the web and that are in a status, for example, already contacted. So I applied several filters and I narrowed down the list of contacts and leads. So if we now move to the Salesforce environment, this is, by the way, a developer sandbox that you can have, as Mike said, for free. You can set up your own environment. As you can see, the campaign is there, but there are no campaign members. So if I move back to my application, I click the button here, and again, an automation is fired in the backend. The automation is catching the filters that I applied and is retrieving the list of leads and contacts and is applying those leads and contacts to Salesforce. So whenever I can even show the automation now. Let me search for that. Okay, so the automation is this one. As you can see, it's pretty simple. It's catching some values and then it's basically doing several updates. I'm using this block, raw API create. If you check the library of Salesforce, we have several blocks for account, for contact, for lead. We don't have any specific block for the campaign member object. As Mike said, every system has its own peculiarities and its own characteristics. So you have to know the target system you want to work with. So Salesforce has the object that is called campaign member. So you can work with that object even if we don't have a specific block. you can use the raw API create or raw API update. It depends on the use case. And then I'm basically firing an email. So if I get to my email inbox, I receive this email. So Salesforce campaign has been populated. And if I get back to Salesforce and if I refresh the screen, I can see that the campaign member has been correctly populated. So I narrow down to 4 and 2, and I see 2 contacts and 4 leads. I could even go further. I could, for example, change the status of the campaign and maybe even fire some kind of job within Salesforce, maybe with other buttons or even within the same button. As Mike said at the beginning, application automation has no limits per se. The limit is your fantasy. So whatever you want to do there, it's doable. So just think about it, and if you want to do it, you can do it. I don't know, Mike, if you want to add something, or I can move to the next case.
No, so far perfect.
Okay. So the third case is a little bit more, let's say, it has 2 sort of branch. You have 2 branches. So the case here is coming from actually the same customer. This is an idea. So the customer in question is an energy and utility company. So they have many people on the field, actually moving on the field, for example, with a van, and they are coming, I don't know, like to your house to repair like an electrical box or something that is broken. And once I was talking with this customer, and they told me, yeah, these people usually have a tablet or like a computer with Windows on, but in the form of a tablet, and they have to like jump between different systems in order like to check the stock of a specific part they need, to check the case status, the case description, and even to open new cases. So during the discussion, they told me it would be nice to have a single point where they access through the tablet, and they can do everything from there. Check the stock, check the case, tell us that the case is in a working status, and even open a new case if needed. So I came up with this idea where you basically I use Salesforce because, again, this is a developer environment that I have, and this is actually the system they are using. So the idea is that you have all your data within the cloud platform, within a single application, and from there you can update the case, and it's very, very similar to what Mike did with HubSpot. But there is another possibility that you have, that is creating a new case from scratch. And now I'm gonna show you. So the idea here is that the session was lost. So let me reconnect quickly. Okay, so the idea here is that, again, in this case, I only have data from Salesforce itself, but you could have data from other sources. I'm thinking SAP, for example, the stock of the parts, so that really a person could, in a single environment, in a single application, could really see everything. And if I connect back to the previous webinar that we did with Mike on the themes, custom themes, you can really have a very nice, good-looking application designed for a tablet. You can maybe get rid of the title bar, of the option bar, of the menu, so you have a very big screen, and you can really design a nice application with like stock availability, cases open. Even I was thinking that maybe you can have like your daily route using, for example, GeoOperation. So you know what is your route of today, and whenever you start your van and you start to move, you can follow, for example, that road. But in this case, it's very simple. You select an account, for example, I'm going to United Oil and Gas, and I see that this account has several opportunities. Some of them are open, some of them are closed, And they also have some cases open. There are seven cases, and 71% of the cases are open. Closed. So there are 2 that are open. So we can imagine that, for example, I am in the van, I arrive at the customer, and I want to tackle this case, and I want to tell the company that I started to work on this case. So I could have a button here. If we imagine the tablet, I could have a button with I started to work on the case. I click it, and the status is changed. In my demo, I have a drop down very similar to what Mike did, and I say, okay, update the case and set it to working. So here there is an automation in the back. This one is a little bit more complex because I wanted to do everything in a single automation. So basically, the idea here is that you don't have one automation for every single part of the case that can be modified, but I have one single automation to do everything. So the automation is basically catching all the parameters, and then based on what parameters is empty, is then applying the specific update. So in this case, I only updated the status, and as you can see now, it's working. The nice thing, for example, of Salesforce is that if I now set the status to closed, you will see that the close date is automatically populated. So it's pretty nice because as we are using native APIs of the target system, even if it's a raw API call, as I'm going to show you now, the case is this one. So you see there is a condition. If status is not empty, update the case status. So we are using, again, the raw API update because there is no block for the case. So case is an object. We didn't wrap it in a block, but still we can update it. So you can see I closed it and the date is from today. So it's 19th of July. So it's pretty nice because there is a real interaction with the system, and we are using the application layer. We are not like cheating and writing on the database. You could update, for example, the priority or the type, but it's really very similar to what Mike did. What I did as a next step is that when I was talking with a customer, they told me that it happened several times that the guy with the van is coming to your house and is tackling a case, I don't know, like electrical meter broken, and he has to open a new case in order to, for example, request a replacement part. Because maybe he had one in the van, it was not suitable, I don't know, for whatever reason, and he had to ask a new one. So I said, okay, you can even create a new case. So if you select an account, you get your information here and you get the cases for that specific account. So if I add a subject, here I mapped some of the parts of the Salesforce case, but you can map more stuff. And as Mike did in HubSpot, even in Salesforce, you can add custom stuff. So you can add custom fields and you can map them here. So I can say, okay, priority is high. The origin is, I don't know, the phone, for example. The reason is, I don't know, breakdown. I need electronic equipment, no SLA violation and no potential liability. I could even add a description, for example, and I click on create. So again, what happens in the background is that an automation is called, is sketching the different parts in the page, and then is putting everything in Salesforce for a new case. So as you will see now, the case will get created, and we will get the case number directly in the application from Salesforce. So this could be convenient because, for example, again, let's imagine I'm the guy in the van. I open a case and I could say to the customer, okay, I ordered the meter. So write down 1043 as a case number. So in case something happens, you know that the ticket has been opened to order the electrical meter. By the way, I didn't show you, but every time I did something, I got an update email as a confirmation. That could be on a Slack channel, on a team channel, doesn't matter. And the last one is a
Alberto.
recap of the case. So I got an email recapping the case, and if I click the link in the email, I automatically land on the case.
Yep.
And here again, as you can see, we are using the standard API of Salesforce. So basically we get all the log. And as you can see, the update is there, okay? So this is really, really convenient. And yeah, I also have a delete automation, but this is more for my demo. I don't expect in the real world the guy with the van to delete a ticket. Yeah, that's
awesome. Let me touch on a couple of things. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody caught this because it depends on how big your resolution is. When Alberto kicked off the create, it also updated the account case, and case number 1043 popped up.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, if you could bring up the automation, and I'm also going to bring up something that somebody typed in a question a moment ago.
Yeah.
The automation has blocks that are not only for third-party cloud application sources, but also for Qlik Cloud. It has its own API. So he's actually doing a block called do reload, and it actually is reloading that app as part of that create process. So you're actually getting a full feedback loop directly into that system. Now, that is possible as well because Alberto's app has a Salesforce Analytics connector that connects into Salesforce to pull that back. I couldn't do that on mine because we don't have a HubSpot Analytics connector. In other words, like a read connector in HubSpot, we'd have to use the REST API. That's not to say we won't have one in the future. So if you have a connector in ClickSense that allows you to read data and pull into the app, you can do those full, feedback loops where it refreshes and reload. For me, I'm actually updating. I'm doing a replication job with Talend where every, almost like CDC, or maybe it's on a schedule, the information is then pulled from HubSpot and thrown into Azure, and then my app is updated using ClickSense Microsoft SQL Server connector. So keep that in mind. The other thing I want to bring up is, Alberto, can you scroll down on the left, all of the connectors? I failed to realize and made some assumptions that when people joined this webinar, the assumption was it wasn't really prerequisite, right? I wasn't going to go into what is application automation, but I probably should have kicked it off that way. We just had a lot to cover. Application automation basically is a way to automate back-end processes utilizing a no-code approach, okay? Through the use of drag and drop and configure. Now think of it this way. The majority of vendors that are cloud-based or, even application-based have APIs, application programming interfaces, where you can code and develop your own solutions with their code blocks, okay, or their solutions, their programs. Well, application automation, if you're not familiar with, integration as a service, imagine all of those code blocks that you would normally type into a drag and drop interface that you just then configure with properties. And the native APIs are all working behind the scenes within those code blocks, right? So that's why you see on the left connectors for Amazon Redshift, SageMaker, Apache, Kafka, API Key, Azure Preview. These are all ways of accessing these vendors' APIs, but without having to write any code. I just have to know what parameters to feed it, what authentication to provide it, and where to put it as part of the flow. And then we also have other connectors like, conditional blocks, send mail blocks, inputs, variables, loops, sleeps, the ability to call automations and variables, etc. Okay, so that's where we're building this and how it makes, the time to value a lot faster because you're not coding these type of solutions. Okay, and you can integrate these directly with ClickSense through triggers. Can you go up, Alberto, to the start block?
Yep.
The start block is being triggered, okay, which basically gives you a way of kicking this off through another application, but it also could be scheduled. It could be manual where you just hit a button. It also could be utilizing a webhook, and a webhook allows a different event that happens on a completely different system When that event occurs, it then kicks off the automation. So for example, we could just say for Qlik Cloud Services that when a user is created, perform this block of automation process, which could be an onboarding process that sends out a message, sends out a packet of information, creates a certain app, a space. You can see all the different things for the events that we can check. Okay. So hopefully that's just a quick synopsis of, what application automation is. It's very powerful, allows you to automate these, manual processes that you would normally create by code or run by hand, for example. Another quick example, sending out notifications via email, reading a list of email addresses, and then, looping through those addresses and sending out messages, stuff that you could do manually one at a time. You can do very simple stuff like that too. And I have a video on that covers that. Okay. So hopefully that, just gives you a brief example. This is also in the archive for Do More with Qlik. We introduce automation, and it's also within all the videos that we've created as well. So if you want a crash course on that, you can self-serve. Okay. Other than that, Alberto, I'll turn it back over to you if you have anything else, just some closing statements or anything else you want to talk about.
No, other than the fact that, as you said, we have many connectors. So the write back to other platforms can be really to platforms like Salesforce or database. As you can see, we have, for example, Redshift. We have, for example, the BigQuery part, even the SQL Server. So if you want, you can really do a write back even on other type of database.
Perfect. And I'm going to address some questions here. One of the questions that just popped up, and I'll go in the other ones. I had answered all of these questions through the interface, but I'm going to go through them for others' benefits. But one of them, can we run a partial reload from the automation? Correct, yes. Right? It's not just reloads. Yes, you can.
Yes.
And you can write back using other REST APIs. There's a generic, you can share your screen again too if you want to.
Yes.
There's a generic REST, I think, is it raw API request or REST API request?
Yes. So it depends. If you have a system, so let me go back here.
Oh yeah, I use it. It's called Web, I think. Is it?
So no, it depends. It really depends. So in the case of Salesforce, we have a generic Salesforce API for objects of Salesforce that are not mapped in blocks.
Correct.
Otherwise, if the system is not here, you have the call URL.
Call URL.
So this call URL is, you can call basically an API for everything.
Correct. And I was using that, for example, I have a Shopify e-commerce platform. Mm-hmm. We didn't have at this time, I don't know if they're going to add Shopify because we have Shopify added to our cloud source connectors, which we're releasing today for Qlik Cloud Data Integration. So I would imagine that eventually porting over to application automation. But for example, I had to use their REST calls, method get, and pass the token in the header and, do all that type of stuff. But yes, all of that is completely possible. So I'm going to just click answer live to these questions. Where can we get more learning materials for webhook, triggered mode, starting automations? That should be in our documentation on qlikhelp.com. There's also information in qlik.dev as well.
Or in the community, I think.
Yeah, or in the,
there are some, I think there is a knowledge base on the community for application automation where you can find, let me see if I can, there is a knowledge base for application automation in the community. So basically here, there are many articles that are.
Take that URL, Alberto, and paste it into the webinar chat to everyone, so they have that. This question I did respond to: is it possible to integrate on-prem SQL using data access gateway approach? That is currently not supported. The data access or direct access gateway is really just a read-only solution for Qlik Cloud Analytics to securely access on-prem data through the gateway. However, there is discussion, this has come up in discussion, so I don't know what the priority is on that, but that is something that I'd like to see happen as well. Can we write back an Oracle database? Yes, Azure Databricks. I believe so. if that's I think I saw Azure on there as well. I can share my screen.
So Databricks for sure. We can run run queries. I'm not sure if you can write back on Databricks, because I don't know if there is a possibility of running queries against Databricks. I don't know if we have any connector to Oracle database, frankly speaking. I'm not sure.
So here's Databricks.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if you can run queries. It's more for an orchestration, from an orchestration perspective.
Oh, I see. Delete.
Yeah, you can run like notebooks and jobs and pipelines, but you cannot really write directly on the underlying data layer. And the same goes for Oracle. I don't think there is an Oracle connector.
So for that scenario, you could actually use our Databricks query connector and analytics into a ClickSense app, and then possibly grab that directly from from the ClickCloud services connectors. But I don't think you could do an update on that, correct?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. I'm going to answer live. Answer live. Okay. I think I'm all caught up. I don't think any other questions came in. No, we're good. So I'm going to sign off now. Please join me on the next one. Registration link is at the top of the webinar chat. Plus, you'll get the updates. And you could even ask me what topic you would like to see, and perhaps I'll cover it in a future episode. Other than that, I'd like to wish you the rest of your day fond farewell, and I will see you on the next Do More with Click. And Alberto, don't hang up when we end it. All right.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.